you have to have balance, right? So, trainers below, a bit more elegant at the top, some makeup on. Yeah. Hello. Today I want to talk to you about two books that I also started that I showed on my Instagrams. So the first one, This Is What It Sounds Like, What the Music You Love Says About You, written by Dr. Susan Rogers and Dr. Ogas. So this one right here. And the second one, Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention by Johann Hari. This one right here. With this one, with This Is What It Sounds Like. So this one, I'm on page 76. This one right here follows a bit the experience of Dr. Susan Rogers. So she will be, at least till the point I'm at, the narrator. This is not fiction, okay? This is non-fiction. Both of them are nonfiction. So, as it says in her little bio that is present in this book, she is a professor of music cognition at Berklee College of Music in Boston, where she received the Berklee Distinguished Faculty Award, the college's highest teaching honor. Prior to her science career, Rogers was a multi-platinum record producer, recording engineer, and mixer. She is best known for her work with Prince on Purple Rain, as well as with David Byrne, Bare Naked Ladies, and many others. And she will begin this book talking exactly about her coming to the music industry, how she hadn't previous training or even studies in music whatsoever. And along the way, she will speak about her life journey in a way. Really, it's brief. She won't go in details because that's not the point of the book. And she will come to a question that came up to her as she explains where she goes. Even though I was working closely with some of the most talented musicians in the business, in my private moments, I often found myself asking an unsettling question. Did listening to music actually matter? Though I was paid and consistently earned the respect of my colleagues, I felt there was an invisible line in the studio that I could not cross. In my mind, I remained merely a listener. I could often be swayed by what the musicians suggested, even when I held a contrary view, because I believed that my own musical opinions didn't carry the same weight as a composer's or performer's. I embraced and cherished the role of record maker, yet, during the more nuanced conversations of how music worked, I sometimes felt like a bystander. And a bit forward, she will speak about an encounter that she had with Miles Davis, but I won't tell you here. And she goes on to say, practically speaking, without a listener, music does not exist. By perceiving, feeling, and reacting to the many dimensions of a song, a listener closes the creative circle and completes the musical experience. Listening is an active process, not a passive one, and becoming a competent musical listener requires curiosity, effort, and love. But it requires something else too, something it took me years to fully comprehend. It requires understanding and embracing your unique identity as a listener. That's why I wrote this book, to help you better understand the street you live on so that you can get more out of your relationship with music, even if, like me, you can't tell an A sharp from a B flat. So, this is the premise of the book, like, of course, summarized and with bits of quotes that I read to you. And when I first heard about this book, I found this premise really interesting. So this was the overture, what I read to you. Then she goes on chapter 1, authenticity. This is what expression sounds like. Chapter 2, realism. This is what music looks like. Chapter 3, novelty. This is what risk-taking sounds like. Chapter 4, melody. This is what music feels like. Chapter 5, lyrics. This is what identity sounds like. Chapter 6, rhythm. This is what music moves like. Chapter 7, timbre. This is what music conjures. Chapter 8, form and function. This is what sounds like to a record producer. Chapter 9, falling in love. The music of you. That's it. Then we have maybe a conclusion, and that's it about contents of the book. So I read chapter 1 and chapter 2. So just from what I read till now, she makes, of course, this is really precocious because I'm really at the beginning of the book. I read chapter 1. I think I'm on chapter 3. Yes, I'm in the middle of chapter 3. You know me. I say in the middle of chapters with no problem. Sometimes I have to go back, but whatever. Well, she goes, I think this is in chapter 2. She goes like, listeners who prefer realistic records usually enjoy imagining the actual musicians performing the song or themselves performing the song. Because realistic music is played at a human speed with human melodies. It is easy to sing along with the vocals or pretend that we are playing one of the instruments or conducting the orchestra. For those of us whose brains are partial to realistic records, the listening experience can mirror what it's like to play or sing, and for many of us, that can be a powerful reward. She goes to say a bit of history of record, how records were recorded. She gives the examples of bands or musicians or artists and songs specifically. She says that the book invites you to listen to many specific records. For the best experience, we recommend that you search for and listen to these records on a popular music streaming service. And then she enumerates them. You can find a list of this is what it sounds like records on the website we've created. And then this is what it sounds like.com. So, but yeah, you can look on YouTube or wherever you want. She gives comparisons between visual arts, so paintings, and how, for instance, before the photographic machine, right? You only have an idea of how a person was or something like that by approximation or with realistic painting. She will, for instance, mention the painter J.M.W. Turner, and she will do a comparison. So the first painting is from 1803 and it's called Calais Pierre, an English packet arriving. And then later on, when photography was invented, this painter JMW Turner, will switch his technique and he will embrace the new era of painting or the new trends, shall we say, and he will do a much more faded painting. I don't know if the term is totally correct, but it's to pull an emotion and not so much to be realistic. And so she will give an example here and she will put a picture of the painting from 1842 called Snowstorm Steamboat of Harbor's Mouth. And she says that in the music industry, this kind of thing similarly happened. So, and she mentions that happened when something called that I can't pronounce, something called DAW, DAW, maybe, in the thing that it revolutionized the music industry. You know, you weren't at mercy of tape for recording. So I think the thing is, it become more electronic. So it was more easy even to edit the sound and so on. So that boomed the way of recording and even the quality of the recording. And she, as a producer at the time, as you heard from the bio that I read to you, she worked with Prince. She talks a bit about that, really interesting. Way before the DAW, so the equipment, the new equipment. And then when she was thinking that she was being good at her job, this new technology came to the game and changed everything. And well, she will give many examples of the before and after in terms of examples of music and records. And coming back to realism, she will say, an interesting finding from the study of individuality suggests that our appetites for realism are specific to each form of art. Your visual circuits develop largely independently from your taste circuits, which develop largely independently from your auditory circuits, which develop largely independently from your olfactory circuits, which means that the rewards you experience from visual offerings can end up being quite different in style from the rewards you experience through taste, touch, smell, or sound. These biological facts can lead to some surprising contradictions within our personalities. I'm hoping that she will give these kind of bits about more scientific findings. I know I didn't say too much about it, but I think from the little bits that I read to you, you can see where or what this book gives you. Of course, I will come back talking about this book a bit further. I hope in 2 weeks or 3 weeks maximum, and we will be talking about this one again. So, Stolen Focus is a nonfiction as well, and this author, he does things like this. So he reads research a topic and then goes on to do and write a book about that said topic. And in this one right here, he starts to, well, he starts in a way that it's really fun and really didactic, in a way that it shows you what or where he began this interest in terms of focus or our attention, and this perception that we are losing it or more and more we are being more distracted by our phones, our computers, with emails and social media and news and so on and so forth. And he will tell a story about a nephew of his that when he was a child, so his nephew, he was obsessed with Elvis Presley, and that he wanted to go visit the house that Elvis gave to his mom. And of course, the author told his nephew, yes, of course we will go there, but something that you say to a child. Well, a few years pass, and that child became a teenager with some issues regarding the use of his phone and how many hours he passed in his phone and not studying or with his friends or having a social life or even a family life, because he was totally absorbed by what was going on online. So his uncle, so the author, trying to grab his nephew's attention and having a wake-up call, challenged him to go with him in a voyage to that said property that has a name that I'm not recalling. Graceland, right? The nephew accepted and they went there. But what the author found out was that the nephew wasn't the only one with a sad issue with technology, because he gave an example really interesting, really funny, that was they were in a room, so they didn't have a guide. They were given tablets, and they had to follow the instructions on the tablet. Yeah. And he was observing a couple that were in the room, right? But they were visualizing the room in the tablet. And the husband, supposedly, or the man, was saying to the partner, look at this, we can see everything. And he was swiping right and left and right, or right and left, or wherever. And the author says that he went to them and said, why are you looking at the tablets? You are in the room. You can look left and right. You can see for yourself. Why are you looking at the screen when you are in the site, present, seeing the said thing that is in the screen? Like, well, it was a whole moment. The couple went away like, what's his problem, And the nephew, when he went to him, was in his phone, because they've made an agreement that the nephew would only use his phone at night when they were at the hotel or something. But of course, the nephew wasn't able to do that. And well, he stops right there just to give an example of the issues that we nowadays are going by or going through. And he goes on to say that he went on a trip that he wanted to do a 3 month. I think that was it, a 3 month. But the thing is, he couldn't have access to the internet on his phone or on his computer. So he had a phone, but it was that phone, a phone just for calls and messages, and he only wanted the computer for writing. I'm on page 42, so I will start the second chapter. You can be proud of me. I stopped and I could read a full chapter and end in the end of the chapter. So he will come back and forth between his story of his reset, shall we call it, and the interviews that he did with scientists, with professors about this subject of our span of focus and attention. And in here, at least from what I've read till now, he will speak about something that is multitasking. Well, yes, but a person that he talks to, a professor, I think it's called Earl Miller from MIT, and he will say that multitasking is a myth, that the human brain is not prepared to, or is not built to multitask. What we do is to switch between tasks. So we do not really are able to multitask, to do different things at the same time. No, we switch our attention and our focus from one task to another task to another task, and so on and so forth. The multitasking came from evolution in terms of memory, computer memory, and how a computer could do multitasks. Yes, but our brains, our biological brains, cannot, at least by the thinking of this professor. So this one, I'm willing at the beginning, because from what I'm understanding, he will go. So the book is not so dense and not so technical. He will tell us a story about how he was in Provincetown, that is the place, and what happens there. I think something will happen. I think he's preambling some stuff that will happen in his reset 3 months of no internet. I'm really eager to know what it is, but let's see. And yes, I think the main point that I read till now is this thing of multitasking. So the book it's a bit not too long, but is somewhat a normal book, shall we say. So let's see what he will tell us more further. And yeah, for this week, these are the two books that I will speak about. I'm hoping next week I will come back with All About Love and the other book, Material Girls. Hopefully, I will be ending at least All About Love. Let's see. I will see you on the next one. Bye.